Appa! Appa! Why can't you hear me? Right, because this isn't my home. This is the home of the LEC, the official home. We're back in the studio. All summer split long. And while the fans can't be with us here in person, they are in spirit. And don't worry, because your snacks and your drinks are not going to go to waste. Now it's time to head into the studio and make sure everything is set up. I need to get myself ready and get ready for a split full of games. Nice. Studio is looking good. Stage is looking clean. The stage is fine. Thank you very much. You can leave. The lighting needs work though. Let's turn this off. And I think we need to get ourselves ready for a show. I think we need to inject a little bit of energy to the set. There we go. That's feeling better. LEC is a professional show on a professional stage with a professional opening ceremony. I've seen this before, but don't worry. I have the perfect idea to make it fresh, new, unique. While we might be getting ready for the summer split, the studio is not yet ready for the players to take to this stage. They won't be joining us for now, and that is not a problem, because we are here to produce the best content in the world. I'm as ready as I'm going to be. Are you? The LEC Summer Split starts right now.
Welcome everyone to the opening week of the LEC Summer Split. We are back in our studio to give you all the best moments from the Rift as the teams start the road towards the greatest honor in League of Legends, representing EU on the world stage. I'm Sjokz, joined by the dynamic duo of Vedi.
At a safe distance away from each other. We're excited, Sjokz. How can we not be? The Summer Split is about to kick off. We have the best teams on the planet. We have the best content on the planet and the best duo ready to bring you all the hot stuff.
Sadly, no horse. No horse. Show's already ruined. We're super happy that we get to be back here. As said, teams at home, we're here. But hopefully this show can just create a cool diversion from you from everything that's going on in the world right now. We'll try and make it the best show possible. And we have 11 weeks to do it. 11 weeks of action lie ahead of us. And here is what is in store for the regular season. Now, first off, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we have made the difficult decision to cancel our plans to host the summer finals in Malmö, Sweden. We are, however, currently exploring other options for the event, and we'll share more with you in the near future. All we can really do is follow the government guidelines.
Oh, definitely. And as you heard earlier, teams are going to be playing from home. The broadcast, though, will be here for the entirety of the split in the LEC studio.
And as a result of that, we will also be introducing Super Weeks. Some of you may be familiar with them if you've been following Europe and North America for a while. We have them in week 1, we have them in week 8, but basically it's 3 days of League of Legends action now. That will mean that on Sunday, 4:30 p.m. CEST, you'll want to be here because we're going to have even more League of Legends content coming your way.
Yeah, it's 3 days of games. Fantastic way to start everything off. There is something we have to do before we get to all the rest. There was a little thing called the mid-season streamathon and a certain competition between the regions, and we have to congratulate the French team on winning. Oui, vraiment, les félicitations à l'équipe française. Donc, c'est phénoménal. Tu vas jouer très, très bien. Mais alors, ce sont les idiotes. Ici, mes deux collègues, les idiotes complètes, qui ont perdu le titre contre les Français. Alors.
Bonjour, je suis ici aujourd'hui pour rendre hommage à glorieux représentant français qui nous ont absolument anéanti lors de l'événement du MSS. Ils sont extraordinaires. Vive la France!
Ils sont. L'équipe française est la meilleure que je peux affronter et je pense qu'il m'est temps de prouver leur valeur au mondial.
Wow, thank you very much, guys. I mean, if I can say something in French.
Oh, please, Laure, please.
Vous avez été tellement nuls. On vous a rétamé. On vous a rétamé tout simplement. Ifio, je suis désolée pour toi. C'est très dur d'avoir des collègues comme ça. Prétendre à la meilleure ligue au monde et avoir ce niveau sur le jeu, c'est terrible. I'm gonna translate because you don't have subtitles.
Oh,
so
yes, please.
thank you so much for everything.
Oh, you're welcome.
I mean, it was an honor facing you guys, and I wish you good luck next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can confirm that's what Laure said in French. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Laure.
Also,
Congratulations.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good to see Laure again as well. Hopefully we never have to do that again. And luckily for the LEC, there are some tools that we can use to clean up our play. Check this out.
Just to try and heal up his teammates. Hylissang's done, Bwipo's done, and perhaps Fnatic are done as Nemesis is caught underneath.
Crummy games leaving a bad taste in your mouth? Don't worry, LEC has got you covered. LEC's incredible power comes from its deep talent pool and world-class competition, helping you feel good through every moment of your day. Use LEC just 2 times a week and watch your teeth go from Iron 4 and whining to Challenger and shining. LEC, give yourself something to smile about.
I think you have a little bit of trumble still here.
I hope you two floss every day.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I agree with the
Definitely.
1 out of 10 dentists that doesn't recommend floss.
The one that don't recommend flossing. You should. It's super healthy. So the big goal for this year is to floss every day and also to secure a spot at Worlds in China. And with 4 seeds reserved for the LEC, we are in for one hell of a race. If you haven't heard the news, 4 seeds for Europe this year. And there's also a brand new format. Now, summer is more important than ever because summer de facto decides Worlds. There are no regional qualifiers anymore.
Yeah, so a couple things to note is that when it comes to points will contribute to your seeding when it comes to playoffs. But now in playoffs, top 4 in playoffs go to Worlds. That's it, 1 through 4. There's no more regional gauntlet, as Sjokz just said, which means that securing a spot in playoffs is so much more important than it ever has been in the past.
That it is, and when we look at the pedigree, rather, of Europe these last couple of years, what also netted them 4 spots at Worlds is the fact that we've made the final now 2 years in a row. All teams made it out of the group stage last year, so there's a lot of honor to hold up, and for each and every one of those 4 teams, they have a lot to chase. They have glory to chase, and they need to do very well.
And technically still reigning MSI champions. No one has actually taken the trophy from us yet. So I'm just saying, we've achieved a lot in
Did
the
we
last
win the
2
last
years in
battle of
Europe.
the Atlantic as well?
Yeah, it's so
Rift
much.
Rivals champion still as well, Sjokz.
But Vedius and Medic, I mean, Europe is just G2, right?
Oh, 100%.
I
100%.
hate that saying it. So I think a lot of people love to forget the fact that Fnatic not only took down, they went 1-1 against SKT, they went 1-1 against RNG, and the team that they lost to in the quarterfinals was the eventual world champions, who they even took a game off of, which was much better than some teams that went up against them in the finals. So I feel that not only that, we've got Origin, who is very close behind them in terms of competing, and I think that when we look at G2 and Fnatic, 2 very clear front runners to make it towards this year, we also have some stacked teams looking to join them in that 3rd and 4th spot.
And that chasing pact is what really excites me. You can talk about Mad Lions, you know, if the Spring Split was Summer Split, they would be going to Worlds. Origin would be there alongside them, but we have upgrades for people like Misfits, who have brought in Cobby, a great AD carry who could potentially take them into that 4th spot. Rogue are still just on the edge of perhaps making it into 4th spot as well. So there's so much to fight for and so much to battle for between these teams.
Can I just say, unreal jerseys.
Yeah,
really
like
nice.
them. Yeah.
And Kappa had to sponsor a team at some point in esports, right?
And I think it's really impressive to see Mad Lions, the amount of growth that they made in spring, to setting themselves up really for success coming this summer. I think the expectations now for this early weeks are going to be very high. The pressure is going to be on for this team because many fans, I feel, look at this team and say, hey, they should be one of the best in Europe right now.
But that means that we're counting on the fact that they will do the same, if not better than last split. And that is, of course, interesting. I think when I look at Mad Lions, there's also a team that I would love to see at Worlds, you know? Honestly, we've had the Vitalities of the world, and you want a team that can throw a wrench in everything, that you don't really know what to expect from the rookies.
I think they really remind me of Splice when they first made it to Worlds. They remind me of Misfits when they first made it to Worlds. You know, these guys that can go in, bring something a little bit new, bring something a little bit spicy, and really pave the way for future rookies going to Worlds from EU.
Of course, it's all up in the air. I heard you mention Origin, and it's almost a throwaway, of course. I mean, they have to make it, but how could a team like Origin possibly do at that World Championship?
I think Origin is a very strong team. I think a lot of people look at the scores from playoffs last split and though, oh, well, they lost 3-1 to Fnatic, lost 3-1 to Origin. No. They were incredibly tense series. Origin was nearly 2-1 up over G2 in that playoff series. Unfortunately, due to a single bad team fight that lost them a game, this team is very strong. It is star-studded, and I think that on the international stage, they can pose a real threat.
Especially in a meta that is likely to suit scaling compositions. We see a lot more emphasis put on getting an AD carry that can play into team fights, that can play later into the game. Origin have also shown us they're really good at playing split push when the game gets, you know, past that 30-35 minute mark. Alphari and Nukeduck are so good in those 1-3-1s, so I really think Origin have a chance of challenging the top two this split.
Is there a team we haven't mentioned that you think I'd like to see them at Worlds? I think they have a good shot, or they could also make it. We need to remember in Europe, that third team, and now we have 3 and 4, is often up in the air and is not the team that we expect with Schalke in the past or in Origin. You know, you need to go all the way to the finish line to make it to Worlds. So who could be a possible wild card in that Worlds race?
Well, I think you have to, if you want to talk about wild card, Schalke is the wild card for me. I think the expected people are Misfits, Rogue, Mad, are all competing, and they're your kind of playoff expected teams. But when I look at Schalke, how they ended last split, and the fact that they've kept a lot of their roster the same, I have high expectations of that team, and I'm really excited to see what they can do within these first few weeks.
I totally agree with that. I think I'll put XL on the list as well, just because, you know, UK guy from a UK org, but I heard really good things about their new top laner, Cries. I think if he can perform to the level that he has in the past year, XL could be fighting for that bottom of playoffs.
Wow, crazy. Such huge stakes, of course. It's not just for our playoffs, which are very important, but also for Worlds, rather. And for the first time since 2015, Worlds will be happening without Uzi, who's retiring after a great career. Here's a goodbye from his LEC opponents.
Hey Uzi, it's G2 Bergs here. I want you to know you are my one of my AD carriers I look up to. I want to have as many lane kingdoms and CS differences at 10 as you did. So now that you are retiring from pro play, I will try to follow your path in demolishing enemy bot lanes. I just want you to know you inspired one mid laner to play the carry.
Hey Uzi, ever since I saw your Vayne play at Worlds 2013, I've looked up to you, and one of the highlights of my career was playing tandem together at All-Stars 2016, even though I was the keyboard. I know I haven't given you the fight you deserve over the years, but you've been a huge motivator for my growth as a player, and I thank you for that. I would also like to express gratitude for my development as a person. Seeing someone with so much passion and sheer grit for the game gave me inspiration to show mine as well. Best wishes for the future, whatever and wherever that is.
There is very little that I could add that would speak more than the adoration and respect of our pros like Reckless and Perks. Uzi, to me, was the mad dog. He was immature, brash, demanding, but so incredibly gifted. He was exceptional, and then he was the rule. He set the standard for marksmen. And I got to watch him grow up on stage. I casted Uzi's Game 5 reverse sweeps. I watched the sheer hunger for achievement. Because for all his international success, Uzi was starved domestically. And I watched that mature him. That struggle tamed Uzi's talent, and that struggle built for him the inevitable lift of his trophy and title. Because for one fleeting year, Uzi got to stand on the podium that everyone knew he deserved. And in that same fleeting year, it was G2 that ended his run towards the Summoners Cup. And when I asked Uzi if at the end of his career, if he had never had that cup, if it would be worth it, he said in such humility and growth, yes. Because his journey was more important than a world championship. I'm a caster in part because of Uzi. His talent, his story, those are my passions. It is immeasurable, unfathomable, the millions of kids who have watched him play and realized that this is what they wanted to be. And it is tragic that players will no longer be able to measure up against Uzi and see how tall they can stand next to the legend. But I guarantee you that for years to come, we as League fans will get to see the fruit of Uzi's labor. He inspired a generation of talent, and as it stands now, this League of Legends, this iteration, it doesn't exist without him. Two players following in the footsteps of Uzi are Perks and Upset, who will face off at our match of the week.
My goal is to win.
I have won many titles at this point in Europe, but the real goal is Worlds.
Maybe the team should be motivated by losing to us. They all want to really badly beat us and win the split. It's up to us to not lose and falter to our own complacency.
No one of us ever tasted the victory of winning a LEC final.
They have beaten me in the final. They 3-0'd me, and it wasn't even close.
Upset. Oh, a great hook from Destiny stops Upset from getting caught out. Now he's able to flash, but Whippo able to land the final Darking Blade, and he takes him out.
The hunger is what's driving us.
Despite his amazing statistics, Upset has never been able to deliver or lift the trophy. It must be incredibly frustrating for him to watch these new ADCs just swap around positions and for him to always be left behind. G2 at this point have nothing to prove domestically, whereas Origin, they are trying to stop G2 in their tracks.
Perks gets collapsed on. Oh, Perks jumps forward, dashes back straight into his death.
In my opinion, the players on Origin need to be emboldened and empowered to make those riskier decisions.
Origin, you know what you're going to get from them every game.
They have to win the Tortoise versus the Hare.
Are playing too safe in first game.
Oh no, I just rather
don't think
watch
they're quite there yet.
Honestly, I don't think that they have like a similar understanding of the game as me. But I don't feel like we proved anyone wrong until we win the split.
Perhaps has to flash away with the Cosmic Radiance. Maybe it was all a bait from G2 as they open up the showstopper coming out. Wonder wasn't in the invulnerability, and now he falls. The follow-up is there as Nukeduck gets another kill. But that's 3 for 1 in favor of OG.
To challenge them, we're not going to be able to abuse their weaknesses as much. We just need to be a really good team ourselves if we want to beat them.
1v1 in the bottom lane. Alfari winning out early on. The Blade of the Moon coming out as well, and Wonder really doesn't get to connect. Wonder will dash across the wall, but Alfari's on the chase.
My motivation since I've joined LEC has always been to win a split.
But the chains locks Alfari in place. Caps with a pentakill. Look at Nukeduck, he's already dead. Caps has killed him. Caps able to take out Upset, able to take out Alfari. Give him another penta.
The real goal is Worlds, and it always will be.
But here comes Nukeduck. Upset still alive, doesn't have the bullet time quite yet. Mickey's gonna fall. Wonder's still alive, but now he's in a 2v1. However, Nukeduck ticking away. He manages to secure the triple.
They're gonna try to win Worlds, and we're gonna try to win against them.
Getting the damage down, but they can't quite get onto the Baron. The Baron is taken. It goes across to G2, and Nukeduck is dead. Perks has secured it.
Caps and me are just like much better than any other mid in LEC.
Which is hunting and running. He wants to make it happen. Feathers fly, and Upset is still not yet done. Calls the Feathers back!
I just really want to prove to myself that I can be the best. I really just want to show that all the time I've put in is actually worth it and that I can achieve something great.
Gosh, I love the story of this video, which is also the story of the competition in EU the last couple of years. G2 is always looking towards Worlds and to lift that trophy, but every other team needs to go through them to get there or to find glory even in EU, and that's even best embodied in Perks and an Upset.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think the Upset, we heard it in the hype video right there, that he's someone that has to keep losing to these autofill 80 carries, and it's got to be so frustrating to him because of how talented he is. And when you speak to any pro, everyone acknowledges how talented this man is, and we've been praising him for years, and we're still waiting for him to be able to finally lift that trophy here in Europe, but it is a tall order when you have to go through the likes of G2.
And I think that's the thing, right? You're waiting for the entirety of Origin's roster to lift the trophy, right? Everyone on this team is a superstar in their own name. Perhaps you could say Destiny is still making a name for himself in Europe, but Nukeduck, Alfari, Xerxes, Upset, all of them have been around and proven they're amongst the best. They just haven't proven that as a team they're they're the best yet.
Yeah, they can start by proving everyone wrong. If they beat G2 tomorrow, that is our match of the week. But this is how we're kicking things off today. As said, 15 games over the course of 3 days and 5 today. My eyes are immediately going to the last game of the day. Misfits with the return of Kavi up versus Reckless and Fnatic.
It's certainly going to be an exciting one, but I think the whole day will be exciting, Sjokz, because at the beginning of every split, let's be honest, teams just kind of suck, right? They have to rely a lot more on their individual prowess. That team synergy isn't the same level that you normally expect at like a week 4 or week 5, which means that these upsets are a lot more likely to happen. Let's not forget last split, G2 nearly lost to this new rookie Mad squad, so I'm excited for a lot more bloodshed today against the teams.
Yeah, that I am as well, and there's so much promise and hope in the air of all these teams, and a lot of them actually turning a new leaf. But we'll see how they all do. And since you last saw us, there has also been a lot of changes on the Rift specifically. So Vedius, go ahead and walk us through the most important ones.
I would be happy to, Sjokz. Now, we will be on patch 10.11 for this week of the LEC. That means that 5 patches have gone by since we last saw our teams play. Now, I don't want to run through every change that happened. Instead, I want to focus on what I think we can come to expect. To do that, let's start with what the patch looked like at the end of spring. Now, the meta value champions that were flexible, Syndra, Kalista, Pantheon, Set, and Ornn, are just a few examples of champions that could be moved into a wide array of roles. They were great at getting early pressure, while also being easy lanes to play around. This doesn't mean that games were fast, though. While we did see a lot of early game action, the average game time was still around 33 minutes. Games were harder to close out through spring relative to summer 2019, but teams that got an early lead often held it for the whole game. Now, for the majority of spring, jungle and support synergy was very important. You would often see Nautilus or Thresh roaming with their jungler, looking for picks or plays in the early game. This stayed largely the same until the very end of the split, where we saw G2 put more of their engage in top and jungle, with enchanter supports and a hyper-scaling AD. So since then, what exactly has happened? Well, we've seen a couple of reworks, Wukong, Fiddle, and Volibear to be more specific. Now, I don't want to go into detail about these reworks, but changed champions often mean small shifts in how the game is approached. And Wukong in particular seems to be popular among pros based on what we've been seeing over in the LPL. On top of this, AD carries were buffed across the board. Most champions did get small buffs, along with itemization getting the same treatment. These buffs weren't overwhelming, but they definitely helped the AD carry role. Meanwhile, when we look at mid, things haven't really changed that much. Syndra did get a small nerf to her E, but will still be strong thanks to her flexibility between mid lane and bot lane. So our mid pool is looking like Syndra, Azir, and Zoe, with various counters or answers to these 3. Top lane is still a big question mark. With few changes to the role or champions outside of the introduction of Wukong and maybe Volibear, the popular champions from last split in Ornn, Renekton, and Aatrox weren't really touched. Gangplank even got buffed. So with all this in mind, what does it exactly mean coming into this week's games? Well, when we looked at the mid lane pool, champions that preferred to stay in their lanes, wave clear, and scale are the go-to. ADs have also been made stronger. This suggests that more investment could be spent towards the bot lane in the early game to make them stronger or simply to protect them. If ADs do become the focus, I expect to see more enchanter supports like we saw from G2 at the end of last split. Yuumi is already considered strong, and Lulu could very well join her. This means that engage needs to come from somewhere else, suggesting that we'll see more tanks such as Ornn and Maokai in the top lane, and based on what we've seen in the LPL, scaling junglers are growing in popularity. Champions like Graves and Trundle that offer strong dueling rather than the ganking in the early game, and then scaling into powerful teamfights fit into what we've already been talking about. Therefore, I conclude that the age of team fighting will be returning. Does this mean we'll have slower early games? Quite possibly, but with Europe's tendency for fast adaptation and unique picks, it's difficult to say for sure how things will play out. These are my expectations, but you can tweet at LEC to let us know what you think the meta will look like, as we'll be talking more about it throughout the weekend. Now, our first taste of the meta will come from G2 and Mad Lions, who hit the Rift in our first game of the split. To those that don't know, Perkz is back in the bot lane, so let's hear from the man himself.
This is the best for our team for the long run. Rasmus is better mid lane and I feel better bot lane. Our personalities, and they will give us better success in the future.
Well, I haven't played a lot of mid lane so far, but I don't think it matters that much. I only played for like a few months of bot lane, and I don't think with like all the 10 years of mid lane I've played that it will make a big difference. I think the learning experience of playing bot lane will help me out a lot more. And yeah, I mean, people are playing the same champions. There's like a few champions that I obviously have to relearn. Like some champions that are coming in the meta that were on meta before that I'll have to pick up on, that I might be a bit behind. But other than that, I think I'm pretty confident.
So it's back to what we, I won't say know and love because I think we like every configuration of the G2 roster, so twist my words there. But Perkz is back in the bot lane, Caps is back in the mid lane for G2. And as said in the video, they said, we think this will yield the best results and we know how to read in between the lines. They want that World's Trophy, right? So, you know.
I think that has to be the goal at the end of it all. And I know a lot of people will focus on Perkz being a safer bottom laner or a better bot laner than Caps. But my big thing about this change is what it allows Caps to do in the mid lane, right? The ability for him to push up waves, roam around with Jankos, and then influence either top or bot lane, depending on how the team wants to play, is what was missing from them for me. Perkz is much more reliant on being in lane. Yes, he would team up with Jankos, but Caps is just so good at finding opportunities where other mid laners wouldn't.
I think Caps is the type of player that would sacrifice his lane in order to impact elsewhere on the map. Yeah. But one of the best examples of that was you just got to go rewatch his MSI Finals performance, and that man didn't even lane in mid. He, as a player, I think earns a lot of respect from the vast majority of pros as being the best player in Europe. And by putting him in mid lane, we heard from Reckless say that I think this is scarier just because he now has even more agency over the outcome of the game. And when you give the most talented player the most agency, you're obviously going to be afraid.
Indeed. And I guess it's also dangerous for us to say, oh, well, they're just going to do as good as they have done. But actually, they do have to work on that synergy again now. It's another change coming in for them in summer. I do want to come back on what you said about the meta as well. Not specifically as much ability for the mid laners to roam out of lane and the other lanes either. So will Caps even be able to exert more pressure on the rest of the map?
I mean, as much as the meta will define like exactly how they play, G2 have never been hampered by the meta, right? They're a team that decides to play outside of the meta like 90% of their games. Just look back to World's Finals where they played Pyke mid into Nautilus mid. Yes, they lost the game, but let's ignore that for the moment. They are very good at finding opportunities where other teams don't, and their adaptability and the ability for Caps to play so many different champions is why they are so good.
So excited to see G2 back on the Rift, and very excited to see them in this specific matchup versus the Mad Lions. Mad Lions, one of the most, if not the most, inspiring rookie team we saw out of the spring split, making it to the playoffs, even beating G2, of course, famously. And now they have a new chapter ahead of them. Where will that lead?
Well, I think up is the expectations right now. Obviously, there is some stiff competition here in Europe, but with the amount of growth that they made in a single split, I think that you just have to have even more faith in the coaching staff behind Mad Lions, who already grew this talented young rookie squad, and now they understand more of what it takes to be and compete at the top of LEC. And how many rookie squads get 2 best-of-5s against G2 in a playoffs, right? Like, you gain so much experience, you're really setting yourself up for success, and I think that we're only going to see more growth from the Mad Lions squad.
And growth has to be the key word for me, right? Because we saw them very good at a specific playstyle last split. They were very good at sacrificing a Rome on the top lane and then playing through mid and bot whenever they needed to. Now what I want to see is give a Rome a little bit more carry potential from time to time. Maybe play some more split push instead of team fights as the meta develops, right? Because otherwise, people will know how to beat your style. And that's what we saw when they played against G2 the second time. Mad Lions need a few more strings to their bow before I'm willing to put them up there with Origin as a third place team.
Yeah, very exciting to see how they're going to develop throughout the summer. Now let's talk a bit about the current situation we are in. We're in the studio, the players are still at home, and we heard as that online play continued a couple of weeks ago that some players said it is different, it is not exactly the same. And that's also the situation in which this first upset happened, right? So what can we expect of kind of the first week form of the two teams and how they might compete against each other today?
I expect chaos. I expect kind of scrims. I think that when we looked at last split, they were coming from stage to then playing in an online environment. Now they're going from an off season into playing in an offline online environment. And I think that differentiation between playing in scrims and playing LEC is going to be slightly harder for them to make. Obviously, this is just a guess on my part, but with fresh faces coming into the split and with being at the very beginning of the split, I'm expecting no clean play and just a lot of chaos.
And I think I actually listened to Mac on Summoning Insight, and he was talking a lot about how his team is driven to perform, and why they improved so much was because every single one of his players is putting a huge amount of time into solo queue, into scrims, and it is hard to now make the differentiation into a stage game. Yes, maybe they'll be a little bit more serious, but my expectation is they would take the same drive to push the boundaries as they do in solo queue into this game. So chaos, lots of bloodshed, lots of action.
We're very close to the start of the game, so cheeky prediction then, if there's going to be so much chaos, is this then a chance for the Mad Lions to upset the apple cart immediately?
I think it's difficult to vote against G2, but obviously in a best-of-1 format, as I mentioned earlier, Mad Lions did come very close to beating G2, and I'm expecting an intense game, but it's difficult not for me to predict G2.
It's G2. You don't have to be cheeky about this one. There's no way the Mad Lions take this game off.
All right, clip it and get it ready. It is time for the moment we've all been waiting for as we kick off the 2020 LEC Summer Split. Let's go!
Woo! League of Legends!
Just because you lost the finals, sure, it might leave a scar, doesn't mean you can't climb again.
I can treat myself and I don't need nobody else, no one else, no. And I'm going on my own and I don't need you to feel at home, no. Never felt so alive.
We're here to stay, and we're gonna dominate.
In Europe, we've got nothing else to prove. We are just gonna keep winning.
I think no one of us ever tasted the victory of winning a LEC final, but the hunger is what's driving us.
I know that we can be a really good team, and I would really like to go to Worlds.
The goal here is to beat G2 and to get the trophy back.
We're counted as one of the top teams. Our goal for this split is going to Worlds. To do that, we obviously need to reach the top.
It's great to be back again, and I'm excited to play against real competition again and still show that I'm one of the best AD carries in the league.
And I don't need you to feel at home, no. Never felt so alive while you're trying so hard to survive, You're always feeling good.
We are a very underestimated team. I think with the changes that we made, we're going to be very dangerous.
G2 are losing! G2 are losing! The rookies have risen up.
G2 are inevitable. G2 are inescapable. 7 titles for G2.
Rushing in, Razzle. Look at where the power lock convention.
Come out. $1.5 million twin bang stone. That manages to stun 2. The knockup from Wonder is fantastic. G2 have turned this game around.
Ripper cannot survive.
For that true shot barrage, Yanko's going to jump into the pit. He goes on something. He steals this. The dive's going to dunk the Soraka back down. Whoa,